My name is Jessica. I am one of the lead teachers for EPK, also one of the founding members of the company. I have a bachelor's in psychology. I currently, for our private school program, I'm doing assessments. I also take part in every aspect of the application process. In the past 3 years, I've been working with the families and the children to help them get accepted in schools from Seattle to Southern California, Northern California, and the East Coast. So there are two main reasons why it's been getting more competitive every year. The first one is since the pandemic, there's a bigger number of applicants. So before, parents used to feel comfortable with public school. They thought, well, they can be in an honors program. They can go into a GATE program if you're here in California. But since the pandemic, they kind of noticed that there are some areas that the public schools are lacking. More and more parents are choosing private school route. Another one is because it seems like every year, the cognitive levels of the students, their academic abilities have increased compared to the year before. So we've seen a lot of applicants that maybe could have gone in 2021, but now maybe got into a wait list. When you're applying, it's important to understand you're not trying to meet the standards of the school. You are competing with a pool of 200, 300, 400 kids. There might be somebody competing with your child that he already is doing second grade math. You're applying for first grade. And so you have to remember that you have to prepare your child not to meet the standard of the school, but to as much as possible. Their academic levels are not the only thing that are taken into account when it comes to the acceptance of your child into a private school or not. There is a positive correlation also about their social and emotional skills. I've found that students that are maybe advanced in phonics or mathematics, but they have some sort of behavior issues or they're unable to really regulate their emotions, they have a smaller chance of getting accepted into some of these schools because they have a play date, they have the interview, they have an interview with the parents, and all of that the school is able to see not just your child's abilities academically, but your child's social emotional skills. So children that are polite, are engaged with their classmates on the play date or the teacher, that follow instructions. So when they tell on the play date, they tell them they are done with that activity, they're able to follow and transition to another activity, tend to do better in the interview and play dates and get that acceptance letter that we all kind of hope for. I would like to kind of give you some tips in your private school application. So I'm going to start with the touring of the school. So from the moment you visit the campus, you are being observed. So everything that you do or say may even count to your admission. I often recommend parents to get to know the school. Look at their website and learn about different aspects of the school, their mission statement, and what they have to offer. That allows you to ask detailed questions when you are in the tour. You're not just going to ask questions like, oh, what are some of your after school activities? Maybe you already saw that on the website. So you're going to be able to ask more questions about, oh, what are some of your extracurricular activities that you guys need help with? More detailed questions often tend to show that the parents spent more time doing their research. They're more interested in that school. Always be careful when you mention you know somebody, because especially if you're not sure if that child has any behavior issues at that school, or if the family has been having any issues with administration. When you mention a child that maybe has some behavior issues, the school might start to think, well, if they're friends with that child, maybe their own kid has same behavioral issues. Maybe that own family has some issues with their own administration that they might not want to bring into the school. Always dress appropriately. Remember, especially if you're bringing your child, you don't want to dress up as if you're going to a job interview, but you also don't want to wear your sweats or your yoga pants. So try to dress up appropriately. Nice casual clothes, so it shows that you're able to engage and do things with your child. but also not as extreme as sweats and gym clothes. And lastly, if you feel like your child might not behave appropriately during the tour, then perhaps it would be better to bring them at another time. Because you are being watched and observed, if you do feel like they're going to be on their best behavior, then I definitely encourage you to take. The last thing about the tour that I would like to mention is often you will meet somebody that is touring with you, somebody from the administration, but you also sometimes will get to go into a classroom or meet a passing teacher. Try to remember those names, because when it comes to the written application, you can always mention them. So mentioning, oh, I met Jane from Pegasus, and she talked about the importance of social emotional skills. And I too agree with it because of, different pointers. It shows that you were able to build a relationship, even though the moment was passing, and not have a deep conversation. It also shows that attention to detail and that you value the staff. I'd love to talk a little bit about the events. Often schools will have events throughout the year that they will invite possible applicants. Some of the events I've seen are book fairs, back to school night. Sometimes they'll let new applicants come in. They have galas, all that kind of stuff. So take full advantage of that opportunity. Go mingle with the staff, mingle with other parents. Remember their names. Try to make those connections, because it's important to stand out any chance that you get. You have to remember, the number of applicants is increasing every year. So you have to find a way to stand out positively from the crowd. And this is one way: going to all the events, talking to different staff, different parents, getting to know the school and its different opportunities. I would always recommend to start getting ready as soon as possible. The longer period you have to prepare for it, the better, because a lot of the applicants are exceeding expectations. So you need to allow time for your child to prepare themselves and kind of naturally build their knowledge, not just academically, but also their social and emotional abilities. Most schools, when you ask them, the main thing for your child to know is the ability to communicate. And so starting their journey in the English language is important. So I always recommend parents to enroll their children into a preschool environment. So you might want to start as half days or just a few times a week, and then move up to there. To help with their academic level, most of the time the preschool setting is not going to be enough to get into these private schools that we're talking about. And that's why I often recommend parents to also start ELA classes for the little ones, for the 3-year-olds, for the 2-year-olds. That gives them the ability to increase their vocabulary and start using full sentence from the start. Often children will come to prepare for an interview and they're answering with just one word. How are you? Good. How old are you? 3. And that's often challenging to change. So starting them young with an ELA class will help them to get used to using those full sentences that schools are expecting. If you know you are interested in applying to a private school and you have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, then you need to start thinking, I might apply in 2 years, but maybe I can start from the basics, getting prepared, and slowly build up, because you don't want to try to rush through the process. Logical thinking and comprehension are extremely important during the whole process. So at home, always focus on playing games, riddles, or any problem-solving games. In reading at home, it's also important to discuss what you're reading, what the meaning of the story is. The characters' feelings can also help them with their own emotional regulation. So discuss what the character is feeling and relate it back to the child. This will all give you easier time when it comes to the play date or interview process. Behaviors can be quite unpredictable. To help them display the ability to follow instructions and emotional regulation, it's important to keep practicing those areas. Talk to your child. Also talk to your child about the importance of behaving a certain way during the school visits. Talk to them about what would you think if somebody did this. Do a little bit of role play that can also be helpful in these situations. Another area that can be beneficial is getting them excited about attending the school. Go visit the school and just walk around with your child. Show them the different activities they're going to be able to do at the school. By creating this intrinsic motivation on them, it might help improve their behavior when they're doing these interviews and play dates. Let's talk a little bit about the essay application and the application form. So us at ePlanet Kids will help you through the process if you choose so. There are some tips that can be helpful when you are writing your application. Always make sure you give examples. Examples are the things that are going to set you apart from the rest of the candidates. Everybody's going to say that their child is kind, but telling them that your child is kind and he helped elderly cross the street is going to be very different than just saying, my child is kind. So being specific about your strengths and weaknesses. When you're mentioning the weaknesses, mention how you're working on it at home. They want to show that the parents are proactive. They acknowledge their weakness and they want to improve, so they are actually doing something at home. Another thing that is really important to know is don't spend too much time flattering the school. If you have limited amount of characters of words that you can write, use that moment to expand how the school would benefit your family, but also how your family could benefit the school. Lastly, after the interview, you might want to send a thank you note or an email to the school, personally naming the interviewer and appreciate them for their time. So these small actions will reflect positively on your family, and it will also reflect positively on your child. At ePlanet Kids, we also focus on their social emotional development. So this year, we are actually going to be offering some in-person assessments, mock interviews for both students and parents, which we'll be hosting at the end of the year, but only for the Pasadena and Irvine area for right now.